Welcome to this SNN Network Canada virtual event. I'd like to introduce our next presenter, Jeff Kendrick, CEO of CEMATRIX. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Again, my name is Jeff Kendrick, and I'm the CEO and one of the founders of CEMATRIX Corporation. I'm a CA by trade. CEMATRIX has been a public company since 2006. We're traded on the TSX Venture and the OTCQB market in the U.S. CEMATRIX is really a story of survival and endurance that is now poised for significant post-COVID growth. Hopefully the COVID situation ends soon and we can get all back to normal. I'll just move down to really slides 3 and 4. Everybody knows about forward-looking information, so I won't focus on that. We're really in the business of cellular concrete, and cellular concrete isn't really concrete and it doesn't replace concrete, so always keep that in mind in this presentation. But cellular concrete is one of the fastest growing construction materials market in the world today. There are numerous applications, from the backfill of overpasses and bridges and MSC panels and tunnels to the base support for infrastructure, including highways that are constructed over weak, unstable, or frost-prone, or even seismic-prone soils, as an insulator, or as a floating base, or as both. We are really the world leaders in this technology, and we're also one of the North American leading suppliers, or on-site suppliers of this material. We use proprietary technologies to produce a number of products within this space. And just recently, we awarded a couple of the largest projects ever led in this space, which includes a $30 million tunnel project in St. Louis that will commence not next year, but the following year. And we're really in a very strong position to capitalize on not only our backlog, which is in excess of $90 million at this time, but also Biden's $1 trillion infrastructure package. We don't know how that's going to benefit us. It will benefit us, but we'll need to determine that over time. And then another thing important to remember is that because we use a tremendous amount of cement in our product, we have very strong relationships with cement companies, particularly the strategic alliance we have with the largest cement company in the world, that being LafargeHolcim. I'll now skip down to slide 5, which is our focus on sustainability. We have always, since the commencement of our business in the early 2000s, been focused on ESG, particularly the environmental side, but also social and governance as well. Environmentally, you will find out that we are generally more environmentally friendly than the legacy products that we replace. In particular, not only on the ESG or the savings from the CO2 perspective, but on the replacement of single-use plastics becomes very big in the business that we are in. So what is cellular concrete? It is not regular concrete. What we do is we take all of the sand and gravel out of ready mix. We replace it with a carefully constituted or microscopic air bubble system. By doing that, we create a material that's lightweight, insulating, self-leveling, highly flowable. It's got excellent freeze-thaw resistance, and it can be closed cell or open cell, depending on whether you want it to be impermeable or not. How we make it is essentially we use on-site production equipment, mobile production equipment. So we essentially can travel anywhere in North America and in fact even the world in order to produce our material. We can have equipment that can produce up to 250 cubic meters an hour. And with the 2 U.S. acquisitions that we completed in the last few years, we actually have over 2.5 million cubic yards of seasonally adjusted production capacity. So without adding another shift or another piece of equipment, we can produce over 175 million in U.S. in sales. And that, of course, is, if you compare it to 26 million that we did the previous year, Canadian. So a significant amount of upside, not only in our equipment, but our staff as well. Number of proprietary technologies. They are all essentially formula-based, so we don't patent them because people just copy formulas. But they're numerous, including mixed designs, foaming agents, additives, processing equipment, we're the only company in the world that has tunnel process or equipment specifically designed for the heavy tunnel grouting market, which is a very significant market in Canada and the U.S. Now looking at the generally greener and more environmentally friendly and more sustainable. As mentioned, in many cases we replace things like EPS block and rigid insulations. And those insulations are really single-use plastics. Cellular concrete and of course those single-use plastics don't break down in landfills when they come out of wherever they've been used in construction application. Where cellular concrete is essentially 80% air, so we can break one block of our material down to 20% of its size and really reuse the powder in making cellular concrete again. And just of note, one EPS block is about 12,500 plastic straws by weight, or 4,000 to 4,500 plastic cups. So it's a huge saving. You imagine hundreds of cubic meters of EPS block going into landfills and not breaking down or floating around our rivers and lakes. Material is also energy efficient, so we're saving energy. We're also reducing greenhouse gas emissions by reducing construction traffic on site. In many cases, our projects are, because we can produce up to 250 cubic yards an hour, our projects can be completed in less than 1/10 the time that regular construction could be. And the other thing and benefit of cellular concrete is that it provides longer life as well, meaning roads and highways and the infrastructure that are built on top of our material will enable these roads and highways to last longer, and then they're not being replaced. And of course, the greenhouse gas emissions that are emitted related to that replacement. In addition, we're looking at other ways to improve the environmentally friendliness of our product by testing the use of CO2 in the process of making our product as opposed to 100% air. And a good example of the savings they get from both the cost and environmental perspective, this project was in the Field region in Ontario, Canada, just north of Toronto, a project where the highway was running between two wetlands and was experiencing significant differential settlement because of the peat moss underneath. This project would normally take 2 months using conventional construction, and conventional construction would have meant dinking down both sides, sheet piling, removing all of the material, the peat moss in between, replacing with gravel, and then paving over top. Again, that would have taken up to 2 months. Using our material, they never removed most of that peat moss, just built a floating base over top of it, and then paved over top of our material, and that took less than 2 weeks. So for that project, and this is only 70 or 700 yards long, or 600 meters, was done at 40% less cost, 25% less emissions, 70% less excavation volume, and 75% less truck traffic. So you can imagine extrapolating this 700-yard section over 5 or 10 miles of highway. Significant savings from a cost perspective, significant savings from an emission perspective, and also significant less truck traffic. So what is our competitive advantage? Essentially, we save time and money in all of the projects that we do. And we also reduce greenhouse gas emissions and various other emissions as well. And what do we replace? Essentially, we replace things like EPS block, which are those large styrofoam blocks you see, rigid insulation or 4x8 sheets of rigid insulation, other lightweight aggregates, weak and unstable soils, expensive steel and concrete pallet construction, and there are other products that we replace as well. And the reason that we replace them is that we're a better overall solution, and all of the other benefits that I mentioned earlier, including time of construction and risk tolerance. But usually when you have something that's better than the alternative, it always costs more. In our case, in almost every one of our applications, it costs less using cellular concrete in an installed basis. So not only are you saving on greenhouse gas emissions and various other environmental aspects, we're also saving on cost as well. I mentioned the competitive advantage, And now I'll explain why this is such a big opportunity or such a significant opportunity. CEMATRIX is really in $3 billion business verticals. The first being infrastructure, including tunnels, so that includes road and runway-based underlay, the backfill of MSC panels, those are the big concrete panels you see along freeways, the backfill of overpasses and bridge abutments, especially when they're crossing weak and unstable soils, and then tunnel backfill. So all current infrastructure is being built under cities. They dig a tunnel, put in a water line or a sewer line, and then we grout around those tunnels. So that's a significant application for our material as well. The second area is industrial and mining, which included the oil and gas area, which we started our business back in the early 2000s. The mining sector we've barely touched yet, and that's a huge growth opportunity for CEMATRIX. And then there's the commercial and seismic end. So I'll just mention seismic. So anywhere they're building infrastructure in seismic-prone areas like California, it's all being underlaid with cellular concrete. And the reason for that is cellular concrete is lighter than water. So if it's designed properly by an engineer and the soil should liquefy in a major earthquake, it would tend to float and keep that infrastructure in place during that earthquake and probably save lives as well. Just a few of the applications we've done to try to give you an idea of some of the extensiveness of the opportunity here. Is this is the Reagan International Airport in Washington, D.C., where we provided an underlay over weak and unstable soils to provide an extension of the runway aprons and runways themselves. Another large application is MSC panel backfill or bridge abutment backfill, and you can see the material in between these MSC panels or these big concrete panels along freeways that you see. This is one of the best materials to use in this type of application. It never breaks down. It keeps the MSC panels in place forever, as opposed to other materials like dirt or other lightweight aggregates. Industrial applications, so under big, large industrial facilities, we essentially provide an insulating subbase for all of these facilities. In this case, we produced over 50,000 cubic meters and a total sales value of $7.5 million. And then, of course, one of the big applications, as mentioned, is tunnel grouting. And in this case, you see the tunnel is built. There's actually 4 carrier pipes that have been placed inside this tunnel. That plywood thing you see at the back is really a plug, and we're grouting behind that, and it's essentially filling this tunnel around all of this pipe to protect it so that no collapses will cause issues with this pipe in the future, and to protect it from seismic-prone issues as well. I won't talk about the customer base, but essentially we're not like a regular customers. We don't sell to widgets to a customer. We really educate the engineering world. They are the ones that specify materials into projects. Those specifications go into contracts. The contractors call us for a price, and then we deliver the project or the price on site. In Canada, we're the only large volume supplier, so they generally send us a contract as well. In the U.S., there's a couple other large volume suppliers, but we're generally the largest provider in the U.S. And a little bit about our alliance with Lafarge. They don't make or break our company, but in the early days, they certainly provided us with credibility in the marketplace in Canada. They provide us with great materials pricing. Of course, during times of shortages, we get preferential treatment on delivery of cement when there are shortages. And they refer projects to us and market our product for us. So our cellular concrete is actually carried on their website. And more importantly, as we expand into the U.S., they get involved in larger construction projects in the U.S. as well, and they are bringing us along as part of their materials package to some of these large P3 projects that they get involved with. Growth strategy, we're really focusing on 3 and 4 right now, which is regional expansion, particularly in the U.S. where the market is growing dramatically. It's important to note that the American market is about 10 years ahead of the Canadian market. So in a lot of cases, and in some states, it's become more mature and it's becoming more of a commodity. But a lot of states don't use cellular concrete yet. So there's still a lot of growth in those markets as well as the markets that have more matured. We're also looking at acquisitions in particular in the U.S., but potentially in Canada too as well. And for these acquisitions, we're looking at, companies in same or similar businesses. Sorry, I went backwards on the slide. Companies that are in areas where we want to regionally expand into. We're looking at potential some vertical integration, and also companies that may be in our own business, other competitors. There's not many around or opportunities for acquisition, but if there's an opportunity into a space, particularly in a region that we're not completely involved with yet, we will look at those opportunities as well. Just on the financial side, we do projects anywhere from $5 million to $30 million, and the size of the projects continues to grow. We invoice on a cubic meter or cubic yard basis, so we're billing on a daily basis or monthly if a project carries over a year. Projects are really divided into two types. They're the projects that are the annual ones that come out from states and municipalities and provinces. And then there's the bigger P3 projects that are typically a longer sales cycle and take longer to go into the ground as well. But generally, margins are, once you get up into the $30 million sales range, which we're getting up into and beyond, you're looking at 30% margins overall and generally growing to 20% or better EBITDA on sale. You see the backlog has now grown to up to over $90 million. These are the projects that we've either contracted or where the contract is essentially in process. So we've got the contract in hand and it's not finalized, or we're in that contract process. You can see prior to COVID, really sales really matched up well with the backlog, but because of COVID and the delay of several projects, and also the landing of larger and larger projects, the backlog is now greater than our annual sales. Now we expect that this spread will close as the COVID situation ends. So in 2022 in particular, we'll see it start to become closer together. And usually the pipeline is completed within 1 to 2 years. With the COVID and some of the delays that we've experienced, it's probably 1 to 3 years. Most of that, or not most of it, 40% at least of the backlog is really due to be completed the following year. A little bit about our capital structure. We have 134 million shares outstanding, 175 million fully diluted, market cap around $40 million. We only have 9 million of long-term debt on the balance sheet. Only 4 million of that is traditional debt. With the BDC, it's at 6.5% interest rates. It's payable over 5 to 7 years. So it's very good and strong debt, and again, low interest rates. So we're in a very good position from a long-term debt perspective. And of course, we have over $20 million of cash in the balance sheet, and this puts us in a very good position for growth from a regional expansion perspective, and of course, from an acquisition perspective as well. We're a very strong management team, including the 2 individuals that were either running or owned the companies that we acquired in the U.S. We have also a very strong directorship group that we just made stronger over the recent year by adding John Kim and Anna Cuglietta. And then finally, just to give you a good overview of the investment itself. Of course, we're in the business of cellular concrete and in one of the fastest growing construction materials markets in the world. We produce a material called cellular concrete using proprietary technologies throughout North America, and we are essentially a more environmentally friendly product than the products that we replace. We have state-of-the-art proprietary equipment, foaming agents, and other proprietary technologies. We're looking at significant growth in this huge infrastructure market that's only being added to by the $1 trillion of expenditures that the Biden government is moving forward for the next 3 to 5 years, we would imagine. We have a strong bid pipeline of over $400 million. Those are projects that we've been approached on by an engineering firm or a contractor for a design, a quote, or both, so they're real projects. Not all of them will go ahead or go cellular concrete, but this pipeline used to be less than 50 million not long ago. So that pipeline continues to grow, and that's what we draw on for our backlog. And our backlog is, of course, over $90 million, even though we continue to reduce it from the sales that we are generating on a daily basis. And then finally, as mentioned, we have a strategic partnership with the largest cement company in the world, that being LafargeHolcim. And the reason that cement companies love us is that we're not competing with them. In fact, everything we do is an incremental market for a cement company like Lafarge. We're replacing products where they've never used cement before. And it's important to note also that 65% of the cost of our material is cement, and cement is the highest margin product for companies like Lafarge. So that's CEMATRIX in a nutshell. We're looking at coming out of this COVID environment in a very strong 2022 and beyond. We've got a strong pipeline, and we're well positioned for growth from an equipment and people perspective. And so now I'll just open the floor to questions, and I'll go to the Q&A section of this presentation. First question is, what is your vision for the company over the next 12 months, and where would you like it to be? Well, we're looking at being back to profitability in 2022. The extent of that will be somewhat dependent on how we move out of this COVID situation, but all the sales are in place right now to make 2022 a good year. So all we will see is some minor delays compared to what we faced over the past 2 years. And we will also see, we're working on acquisition opportunities, and we hope to complete one or more in the upcoming year that's going to add to the value of our business. And then within 5 years, we also expect to be in the $100 million sales range, and that will come from both the growth of our cellular concrete business, but also some acquisitions as well. Next question is, may Enrich be able to use your product in Michigan for the pipeline? The answer is yes. We're, in fact, using our product quite significantly in the Trans Mountain pipeline right now. We've done work for Enbridge not only on their pipelines, but also on their facilities as an insulating subbase for a lot of their facilities, not only in Alberta, but other provinces as well. Backlog here, just to confirm, 50% is 2023 or later. Not correct. Probably about 30% is 2023 or later. Most of the rest of it should be completed within the next 2 years, providing there is no further COVID delays on some of those projects. Next question, can cellular concrete be used for retaining walls or for septic tanks? Not for making cellular for septic tanks, because it is not a structural material that uses rebar. We, in fact, have no other structural elements in our material. We're replacing things that are like dirt or rigid insulations or EPS block. It does provide some structural elements to the applications that we're doing, whether it's a road or a bridge or even a retaining wall backfill. So the answer to the first part of that is yes, it is used in the backfill of retaining wall. Part of the question was, or because the density is less than traditional concrete, and yes, that's the answer to that. We make a product that's up to 1/6 to 1/8 the weight of regular concrete. So we're never replacing regular concrete. But even at our latest densities, we're 2 times the strength of compacted gravel. So in a road situation, when we're replacing dirt, we're actually adding strength to that particular road underlay or bridge underlay, or as a backfill to a bridge or an MSC panel situation. That seems to be all the questions that we have to date. Again, I'll just confirm that CEMATRIX is in a very strong position for continued and strong growth in 2022 and beyond. We have been affected by COVID, but just from mostly a delay in projects, we haven't lost any projects. In fact, the opportunities continue to get stronger and stronger. In Canada alone, one of the reasons for the sales going backwards in 2020 was that the way we approached COVID in Canada, our sales actually dropped by 50% of the previous year. What we've seen this year, though, is we've almost rebounded completely to where we were prior to COVID, and at stronger margins as well. And we've also seen the bid pipeline grow dramatically, particularly in Canada. Our bid pipeline, these are projects that we are approached on again for a design or quote or both, is grown by 50% over pre-COVID levels. And this is really organic growth. And this really supports the future growth of the company. And so, in the U.S. as well, we're still seeing a strong bid pipeline. The projects starting to get larger and larger, and of course the number of projects getting greater and greater as well as we continue to develop this business. We appreciate your time today. We look forward to any questions or further questions that you may have. My contact information is on our website at CEMATRIX.com, and of course our two IR firms, that being the Howard Group and Bristol, their contact information is there as well, and both of those groups know a significant amount about CEMATRIX and have been with us for a significant amount of time, so they can answer most of your questions as well. Have a wonderful Christmas season and a great 2022 as we expect at CEMATRIX. And it's good time to invest. We're undervalued right now, and we look forward to you becoming part of our shareholder group so that I can become, or I will be working for you for the foreseeable future. Thank you very much again, and have a great afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's presentation, and thank you for tuning in.